All right, so I wanted to take a little bit to talk about situation. I was watching the first show back for Just Pearly Things, um, and they were talking mostly about Andrew Tate. And this is going to end up being like an ethics versus morals video. So like the beginning of this video, I'm going to be like correcting the record on certain things, speaking in defense of Andrew, and then because that's the ethical part of the video, and then there's going to be the moral part of the video where I'm going to not be so kind about things that he does. So if you're like a hardcore Andrew Tate fan and like you can't handle people criticizing him at all, then this probably isn't the video for you. Like I said, though, I'm going to spend the first half of the video actually defending the dude, and then I'm going to spend the second half of the video talking about some stuff that I have a problem with. But yeah, they were talking about a few things. So one thing they were talking about was the video that surfaced, where they couldn't remember what was in the video, but I do remember what was in the video. He was striking a woman with a belt, and everyone was sharing it around saying that it was proof that he was abusive. And then they actually talked to the girl, and she was like, yeah, that's kind of my kink. And if you know anything about Andrew Tate, then you know that he's pretty big in the BDSM scene, and that stuff like that can kind of be expected, you know. And then there was another thing, which is wild. So let me tell you why this is wild. Libertarians brought this argument to me. In fact, a libertarian brought the argument to me about the video where he was striking the woman with the belt, even though she was wanting him to. Because there are people who are like that. There are. And if you don't believe me, just find the right club. Find the right club. You'll meet them. And another one that the same libertarian brought up to me, he said that Andrew Tate was guilty of kidnapping, abduction, and sex trafficking. And I was like, well, that's kind of wild. I've never heard this. And I looked into it, and I found a Daily Beast article. Like 2 Daily Beast articles. There are 2 Daily Beast articles about this. The first one is about the abduction. And then they had to write a second one for the sex trafficking. Yeah. So, the human trafficking. Yeah. I click on the link because the Daily Beast's first article says that it has like a direct link to the article in Romania that's talking about this abduction and human trafficking. And I'm like, oh my goodness, well, if he actually did this, then this is terrible. And I click on the link, and it's dead linked. The original article's gone. It's just not a thing anymore. And I go to the second article and click on the source link, and that article's gone too. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to take the Daily Beast word for this, because the Daily Beast was very explicitly saying that this guy was, you know, he abducted this woman and raped her and all this stuff. It was human trafficking and everything, like smuggled her in through a slave ring and some stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go straight to the source. So I actually find a newspaper in Romania that actually is still talking about it and did not just kill the article after the updates came rolling in. So I got to find out what actually happened there, and apparently they when the abduction didn't stick, and I'll get to that in a little while. Apparently the sex trafficking was that he bought her a ticket to Romania. Now that should be sign number 1. When he's got his name on a ticket that runs through an international database of a person he's supposedly about to commit a criminal abduction against. That should be sign number 1 that a criminal abduction probably isn't happening. But he pays for her to have a ticket to come to Romania, and what his worst decision in all of this, other than what I'm going to talk about later in the video, is the fact that he did not make sure that the people who were with her did not see the events transpire that apparently they agreed upon. Because she gets abducted, and the person that she's with is like, oh my gosh, can't find her. So she reports it to the State Department. the U.S. State Department that this American has been kidnapped, which makes the State Department to contact the Romanian State Department, and the Romanian government just defecates itself over potentially what's happening here. So they launch this full scale investigation, and like they barge onto the Tate's property. Andrew lives there with his brother, and they go into the houses. They don't say which one that they find the women in, but it's largely irrelevant for I'm about to tell y'all. The police find the American woman, and they find a Romanian woman also in the house and or houses. On the scene, they determine that the American is not being held against her will. On the scene, the Romanian police are like, well, I mean, no, obviously you're not here against your will. They were able to determine that immediately. Now, for the Romanian woman, that's a different story, because from what I can like deduce from the details that have been released by the Romanian government, because a lot of this is still sealed because it's an ongoing investigation, but from what I wouldn't say leaked because it's officially released, but the information that they've released, she was not able to like freely move around at the time that the police barged in the door. So they still had to take everyone down to the police station. After 5 hours of inquiry, the Romanian woman is seen pleading alongside the Tate brothers with their lawyer. And no charges have been filed since. So I'm going to lean towards this was probably a consensual thing. And nobody wants to believe that. Nobody wants to believe that. And the reason that it's so wild to me that libertarians brought this argument to me. Oh, that reminds me. I need to update my, where is it? My thing up here, because we have a new icon. The thing that bothers me about libertarians doing that and just intentionally ignoring information so you can assassinate the character of someone that you disagree with, which I disagree with Andrew Tate. We're going to get to that. But to do that is something that we blame the other parties for. And you can pretend that there's no hypocrisy in doing it either if you want to. But y'all telling me that because state charges have been filed, well, I don't even know if charges were ever even filed. I think that's just still an investigation. But because there is a state investigation into something, that we have to assume that it's true. A libertarian is telling me that. A libertarian told me that. And the hypocrisy beyond that is that nobody in the libertarian community waited for any evidence to come forward when Julian Assange got picked up. That wasn't just an investigation. The state actually charged him. What was it, Sweden? Was it Sweden? I can't remember. But they actually filed charges on him and everything. And the same libertarians did not hesitate to jump to Julian Assange's aid. And we did later find out that the charges weren't real. And it's the same story when they tried to make somebody who is being, pursued by multiple governments for grape charges. They tried to make him president as he was sailing around on a boat in international waters. Anybody remember John McAfee? Nobody wanted evidence in that case. And I knew the day was coming. Like the second that I heard that there were speeches violence libertarians, I knew this was coming. Everything that made libertarians principle was going out the door. And this is just another case of that. Like, yeah, ethically speaking, I can't see where he's done anything wrong. And until more investigation, like if there's any more investigating to be done, if they find anything else, I'll hear the evidence. But from what's been released, there's nothing there. Like, he didn't do anything unethical. Everything was consensual. And it's like, even the stuff that I disagree with him on, everything there is consensual. Like, I can't really speak to the ethics of it. He's not doing something unethical. Like, even the things that I hate that he does, it's not unethical, because an ethic is what a community creates as a standard, whereas a moral is something that's typically more like personal, or community. Well, actually, ethics are community based too, and that's why there's like a blurry line there. So like, let's say morality of Christians. Christianity is a moral code. But if enough Christians live in one community, that moral code becomes the ethical code of that community. And that's the difference between morals and ethics, is ethics are morals except agreed upon by a broader community. So what he's doing is not unethical. It's not unethical because we've created a culture that completely accepts what he's doing. Okay. My problems with Andrew Tate are moral. I was watching, they were reviewing several things that Andrew has said over the years, in that Just Pearly Things episode. I'll actually link it down below too. It's worth watching. It's a good episode. And there was a clip where he was talking about the value of 18 and 19-year-old girls, and people can be shocked and awed by the fact that a person said that all they want to. Yes, a woman who has been, the woman who is the least robbed of her innocence is considered the highest value. And that's essentially all he was saying. But the part that I not even necessarily disagree with, because like, I mean, like 18 and 19 is way below my personal thing, because Andrew's 35, I'm 32, and 18 and 19 are already off the table for me. I'm just like, that's too young. But even if a dude did, like a 30-year-old dude married a 19-year-old, and he was what Andrew called imprinting on her, which is to set a good example, you know, give her like advice, show her what good men behave like, all that stuff. He was like, and he actually said that to turn her into a good person. And I would agree with that with just about anyone else, but that's not what Andrew's doing, because when he picks up 18 and 19-year-old women, the first thing that he's teaching them is to strip and lie to strangers on the internet and pretend that it's a profession. So like, what he said is true, but in the context of who he is, it's not true. Because like, I know everyone like knows him from like the prize fighting and stuff, which, you know, we can have a talk about how that's just redneck culture. And somehow through the miracle of Western culture, we found a way to take nonsensical redneck things like punching each other for no good reason and turn it into professions. And I watch them. That's the thing too. I watch boxing. I watch UFC. I like violent sports. I do. I like backyard fighting more than anything. It's fun to watch. But it's, at the end of the day, it's just me embracing rednecking. And rednecking ain't something to be particularly proud of. But yeah, in the context of who he is, like, that's not a thing. He's not teaching these 18 and 19-year-old girls that he interacts with to be good people. He might be teaching them like some financial stuff, like teaching them how to, you know, budget and save and stuff like that. But like, for the most part, the first thing that he teaches these girls is how to scam people on the internet. And like I said, it's completely ethical because everyone involved is consenting. Like, Andrew's consenting to running the company. The girls are consenting to scamming the men. The men are consenting to being scammed. So I can't say anything on an ethical level, but like on a moral level, that's pretty messed up. I'm just saying. Like, and I know that people like Andrew a lot because he rails against modern feminism, and I feel y'all on that. I do feel y'all on that. But it's not like he doesn't like toxic women. Like, his personal preference in women are some of the most toxic. Like, as a dude, the idea of like grape fantasies and abduction roleplay and stuff like that ain't gravy to me. Like, there's just something like deep in my soul that tells me that's not right. That's just not right. But that's his primary thing. So like, on a moral level, like, I completely, like, I'll defend him on an ethical level. I won't defend him on a moral level. I won't. He's just not that guy. And like, everyone knows him from the prize fighting, but like, he's built a significant chunk of his empire just by exploiting the biochemical needs of men who can't get laid. And we celebrate that. And he he defecates all over toxic feminism or toxic femininity, except for the stuff that he likes, and he loves toxic women. Like, you can't convince me that a woman who wants to role play being abducted and raped is not toxic. You can't convince me that. Like, they can do it all they want to. I'm not going to tell people they can't do that. You know, your kinks are your kinks. As long as you're consenting, I don't care. But you're probably a toxic person if that's your kink. If that's your side of things. And you can tell with Andrew, too, because he's a really emotional dude. And, like, his guests are also really emotional dudes. They're just, like, blue-haired emotional dudes. And Andrew is an emotional dude, too. And I'm just like... You can talk all you want to about this and that and the other. Like, I can call out toxic feminism day in and day out. But when I'm participating in it, like, where does he get the room? That's what I want to know. Someone, if you're an Andrew Tate fan and you stuck around this long, explain to me in the comments where he has room to talk. When he is directly producing this kind of content, he's built a business model around toxic feminism, and we pretend like he's actually against it because he says he's against it, but he's built an entire business model around toxic feminism, using 18 and 19-year-old girls to strip and scam people on the internet. That's his whole business now. And people are giving him money to be a hypocrite. Which, like I said, you can be a hypocrite. Like, that's not even an ethical thing anymore. Our culture has completely embraced people being hypocrites. But, yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to for me when it comes to Andrew Tate, especially. Because, like, this dude... Like, yeah, he's achieved a lot of stuff, but, like, emotionally, he's really immature. And at the same time that he's saying that toxic feminism is the thing that's ruining the world, he's using toxic feminism to make all of his money now. And I don't get why guys are going along with that and be like, oh yeah, he's the greatest. And this is why I don't, like, consider myself red pill, because, like, to me, the red pill community doesn't have, like, a moral set. Like, there are people in the red pill community who have morals. But, like, even with the dudes who go on Just Pearly Things, like, they're talking about, like, they will have sex with quote-unquote thoughts. They just won't marry them, but they're perpetuating the culture. They're, if a woman is doing X, Y, and Z, and a Chad decides to have sex with her, that's telling her in her mind, it's validating all of the things about her. So when you complain about a third wave feminist being a toxic piece of trash, but then you sleep with her, in her head you just confirm to her that it's a good thing to be a toxic piece of trash. And when you're perpetuating those systems, I just don't respect you when you complain about them. I don't. Like, I don't perpetuate that system. So I get to complain about it. But when you're making money off of these things that you're saying are so terrible, I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. You're lying to yourself. You're lying not only to yourself, but to everyone who is following you and sending you money. That's one of the reasons why I actually do like Just Pearly Things, because Pearl is a pretty upfront, honest person. Like, and she actually has a moral code, which is wild to see amongst millennials, I know. But yeah, that is my discussion on the whole Andrew Tate thing, because I actually lost friends for defending the guy from those accusations about him abducting and raping a woman and having her brought into Romania through a slave ring. It was all bull. But I lost a friend over defending it. Yeah. Even though I just spent, like, probably five minutes just saying that I cannot stand the dude himself. But yeah, it is what it is. Nobody can handle having, like, a difference of opinion anymore, man. Like nobody, like the red pillars can't even do it. They get mad because no one will respect the fact that they disagree with other people. But then if other people disagree with them, they're disrespectful about it. But I don't understand it, man. Can't we all just get along and like talk to each other like adults? Anyway, I guess I'm hoping for too much. Till next time, I love you all.